One.
Hey there, Raiders! Happy World Read Aloud Day. Today we join millions of readers and writers in over 170 countries, and we celebrate our freedom to read and write. And today we have a very special treat for you.
Our Raiders, today we have the ultimate pleasure of having Dave Roman visit us here, have a little conversation with us, hang out, uh, make him an honorary Raider for the day. A little bit about Mr. Roman. He is a graduate of the School of Visual Arts. He's a writer of graphic novels. I know we like graphic novels. Contributed stories and art to Goosebumps. Now that's cool. He was also a former editor for Nickelodeon magazine. I don't know if you guys remember Nickelodeon, but it's good stuff. Mr. Roman, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my absolute pleasure. I love hanging out with people, talking about my favorite thing in the world, books and art and creativity, all that good stuff. Yeah. So if we can, I thought it'd be fun to do a little drawing. I don't normally draw on a computer. I mostly draw my books traditionally with piece of paper and pencil. In fact, I've got some examples of like some of the drawings from my most recent book here. Kind of hard to see, but yeah, they're like that. Woo, yeah. But if I hook up my iPad, I should be able to do a little drawing demo for you guys. And then I thought we could like answer some questions, I guess would probably be the best thing. So yeah, I'm going to hit present and hopefully that's going to take us to my computer. All right, here we go. Yeah, so hopefully somebody will let me know if you don't see. Oh yeah, looks like you do see my computer now. Great. So I'm gonna draw a character. So I have a new book called Unicorn Boy that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. So I've been drawing this character a whole bunch recently, and the way that I draw him is not too different from the way I draw most of my characters, which is to draw a line and then another line and then kind of like half of a circle like that. And then I add another circle on the side, which becomes the ear, and another circle on that side, which becomes another ear. And then I try to find the center of the face so I know where the eyes should go. And depending on the character's mood, he could be smiling, he could be frowning, but he's having a good day. So I'm going to give him kind of like a nice open mouth like that. And then the trickiest part of drawing this character for me is actually his hair. Usually it's kind of like swooshing down over his eyes. Kind of think that he's got like a little bit of an emo vibe. And then draw the top of his hair kind of swooshing over, kind of like he really is in desperate need of a haircut. And it's just kind of a little messy like that. And then because this is a kid who actually really was a pretty shy kid up until he suddenly sprouted a unicorn horn out of his head. And it kind of makes it hard for him not to stand out now. And the unicorn horn is magical, so it glows and it sparkles and it has all sorts of crazy, weird powers. So when I fill in his hair is supposed to be black, but I'll just kind of fill in the bottom of the hair and leave the top part white so that it looks like there's a bit of like a glowing rim around the top of his hair, like his hair is shining from the magical light at the top of his head. And then I will draw his neck and give him a little V shape because he's wearing like a sweatshirt hoodie. Draw the side of his body like that. I'm going to draw his left arm, which is just like a noodle shape or like a tube, like little stubs for the fingers. And draw his legs here. But I'm going to draw his other arm outward and make his palm out so that he is holding what looks like his lunch. It is a muffin, but in the book, turns out he's actually a wizard who has been cursed with a spell that turned him into a bran muffin. So I'm going to give him some little sparkles so that you know he's magical. And then finally, I add like a little shirt pocket because sometimes in the book, Unicorn Boy doesn't want to carry the muffin around, so he puts them in his shirt pocket. And then I'm going to add another friend that he meets along the way on his adventure. So Unicorn Boy needs to go into the underworld, and it's basically like the underworld that we read about in Greek mythology with Lord Hades and stuff like that. So he teams up with a black cat because black cats are really good with magic, and that helps him get into the secret underworld. Make his hand waving to everybody, and then add a little tail like that. Yeah. So like I said, I normally draw on a paper and not on a screen, so I apologize if that's a little wonkier than I would normally draw. But yeah, I'm going to stop the screen there. Cool. Yeah, so like I said, Unicorn Boy comes out in a couple of weeks. Before that, I did 3 books in a series called Astronaut Academy, and that's about these kids who go to school in outer space. And I always loved outer space as a kid. I love science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek, and always just thought it'd be like really cool to have adventures in outer space, and wondered like what the future might be like when we don't just live on Earth and we can actually like travel to different planets and stuff. So Astronaut Academy is like the most premier school in the galaxy, and kids come from all over the universe to go to school there. And the story begins with the arrival of a new kid who has a very secret past. He was a space adventurer and made a lot of enemies and has like all sorts of, secrets that he's trying to keep. So you find out that through these other kids that he meets. Yeah, so it's a little weird not to be in person and be able to just like talk to you guys one-on-one, but hopefully we can figure out a way to do some questions and some answer, try to answer some questions. So I don't know if you guys want to like come up to the computer and ask the questions that way, or if a teacher wants to like collect some questions to ask, and I can try my best to answer them.
All right, Mr. Roman. That being said, then let's hit the ground running. We have a question right here.
Where did you get the idea of your book?
So all of my ideas really start in my sketchbook. I just love to doodle. I've always been a compulsive doodler. I feel like sometimes, if I don't have a sketchbook with me, I'll go a little crazy. So I always have like little notes and little doodles, and I draw like just little silly characters and try to wonder, like what their life could be like, what kind of adventures they might go on. So a lot of the stories really just start there. And because I draw graphic novels, I'm always trying to think of ideas of things that would be fun to draw. So initially when I drew kids floating around in outer space with like little space outfits on, I was like, oh, it's just really fun to draw that. And then the stories kind of spiraled out of that. And the same thing with Unicorn Boy. For a long time, I would just draw this little, kid, and then I thought it would be fun to give him a little unicorn horn and, kind of wonder what kind of magic powers he might have. And before I knew it, I was thinking of stories.
Interesting.
All right, we have another question over here on this side. Go ahead, ma'am.
Who is your favorite character in the Astronaut Academy series?
Oh, that's a hard question because Astronaut Academy actually has a lot of characters because it's like a whole school, and I think we meet at least 30 different kids who get to have like kind of a moment in the spotlight. But probably if I have to choose a favorite, I would say it's a kid named Doug Hero, because he is like the kid who doesn't ever want to take off his space uniform. So like even when he's in class, he's still wearing like, an astronaut helmet and all his like astronaut gear just in case, because he's like very paranoid about going to school in outer space and doesn't want to take any chances. So I don't know. I kind of relate to that kid because he's like over prepared. I was a kid who liked to bring my backpack everywhere and always kind of want to have my asthma inhaler and like some pencils with me and some notebooks and a book to read just in case. maybe my Game Boy, stuff like that. So I kind of relate to the idea of like a kid who just like always wants to be prepared no matter what.
Interesting. Torin, you have a question for us?
What inspired you to be an author for children's books?
So initially, I don't think I wanted to do books for kids. I think I like when I was a teenager, a lot of my comics were actually like really violent and bloody. And even if they were like cute, it was like demonic toys or like little kids with like an axe going around chopping people up, like really disturbing things. But I realized like when I started going to Comic-Con, like Comic-Con is where you go and you get to meet all these other artists and you can try to sell your books. So as I started selling my books, parents would come up to my table and say, ooh, I really want to like, buy your book for my young child. And I would say, oh, I don't know if it's really appropriate for a kid. It's really violent. And I started realizing quickly that, if I did those kind of books, like I was kind of keeping certain people from reading them and I didn't want that. So I think as I got older, I started making more books that were meant like for everyone. And in my head, like when I write a book, it's like really for everybody, like, kids and adults. But because the characters are so cute, I think a lot of publishers are like, oh, yeah, these are great for kids because they're so cute. But in my head, I think they're for everybody.
Mr. Roman,
Everybody likes cute things.
I'll give our students a little sample of what exactly you would do with the goosebumps.
Oh, yeah, with Goosebumps. Yeah, so I was very lucky. So, once Astronaut Academy got published, I got to meet lots of like really cool and interesting people, and people started asking me to draw other stuff, like other people's characters and other things. I actually got to draw a SpongeBob comic. I drew a book about the planet Pluto, and one of the coolest jobs was that Scholastic asked if I wanted to draw a Goosebumps story, specifically about Slappy, the ventriloquist dummy. So they asked if I would read the original book that was published. So the original Goosebumps books were published when I was a kid. But I never read them because I didn't like reading scary books. And they said, could you adapt it into a comic book or a graphic novel? So that became Slappy's Tales of Horror. And I drew the cover and I adapted the original Slappy story that like introduces like where Slappy came from.
Oh, gorgeous.
So interesting.
You have a question on that side?
Yeah, we have another question on this side.
Mario?
Go ahead.
What was the best thing you learned at DC Comics?
Oh, wow. You guys did your homework. Yeah, so I interned initially at DC Comics. So an internship, if you guys don't know, it's kind of like a job. It was like one of my first jobs, except rather than paying me money, I just got like the experience of working at DC Comics. And DC Comics is so cool because they like publish Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Suicide Squad. And my favorite was that they were also publishing comics based on Scooby-Doo, Powerpuff Girls, and Dexter's Laboratory. And I got to help the writers and the artists on those books. And initially, one of the first jobs I did was answering fan mail for Scooby-Doo and then Dexter's Lab. And then eventually they gave me a chance to write some of the Dexter's Lab comics, which was an old cartoon show. I don't know if all of you guys know who Dexter's Laboratory is. It was really popular when I was a kid, but it's still probably one of my favorite shows. And then I like working on the Powerpuff Girls as well. So even though I didn't get paid for that internship, I did get to meet like amazing writers and artists. And one of those writers actually helped me get my first job at Nickelodeon. And that was like my first paying job was at Nickelodeon. So even though I didn't get paid to work at DC, it did end up helping me get another job. So you never know how these things are going to all connect. And I actually say it's really great to volunteer and, work, even if you're not doing it for the money, but, to gain experience, to network, meet people and I'm still friends and I'm still connected with all the writers and artists that I worked at Nickelodeon and DC Comics with. So even all these years later, it's really great.
Mijito, you have a question to Blue?
Oh, yes. What is your favorite part of being professor?
I'm sorry, my favorite part of
What was the question again, mijo?
What is your favorite part of being professor?
What is it?
of being a professor. Oh man, I don't know. That's a good. That's a hard one. I honestly feel like so. I am a professor of art and comics, so I get to help people make comics. And to me, I think if I get to help somebody and keep them going, because I think sometimes it's really easy to get overwhelmed and get scared and start to doubt yourself. So I think it's really cool if I can like support them and give them encouragement. And if I can help somebody, overcome their fears and still want to keep making art and drawing, I think that'll be the best thing, because I know how hard it is to make books, and I would love to encourage, people to not, give up, really.
I think that's questions. Yes, ma'am.
What inspired you to write the books that you write?
Most of the books, well, really just because I like to draw cartoons, like really that was the first inspiration. I just thought it would be really fun to draw cartoons. I love cartoons. I love all types of cartoons. And I learned to draw from copying, comic books and cartoon shows. So eventually I just realized like it'd be even more fun if I could make my own characters and create my own stories and worlds and not just, because I could draw Garfield all day, but I thought it'd be fun, to create my own cartoon characters too. So I'm not 100% sure why that is, but I can say that it's really satisfying to, make something, with your own hands from scratch, or, first there's nothing and then I draw something and then there's, pages of art like that. And then if I draw enough of these pages, it eventually becomes a book, and it feels really exciting, to know that like this whole book was made by me. So I recommend it. I think if you ever get a chance to make, your own stuff, you should totally do it. It's really, really fun.
Dave, so for our aspiring authors and illustrators, two-sided question. At what age did you start your craft, drawing and really getting into it? And then secondly, as a middle school student, can you recall any one teacher that either pushed you further or inspired you, or that little light bulb went off? And as middle school kids, I know, as a middle school teacher, I know we endear ourselves to the kids, and we hope it's a reciprocal. But I think that's these formidable years is when relationship building starts, and as you were mentioning earlier, to network and to know people, and that in itself is a form of wealth. Not necessarily did I get paid, but payment comes in many forms, like the relationships that we build. And so,
Yeah,
can you tell us a
absolutely.
little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that I recommend the most, is community. Like really community, especially for artists, is so important. It's one of the reasons why I really, encourage, even if you're really shy about your art. And when I say art, that could be writing, that could be music, that could be video games. There's all different types of art. But the key is to share your art with other people. And whether that's, people in your class or friends or family, and then eventually sharing it with your teachers and people in your life, because those connections are so, so important. And I was very lucky that I had teachers that saw that I like to draw and encouraged me. And I think most importantly, that they took it seriously, because honestly, when you're a kid, all of you guys probably drew when you were kids. And as you grow up, everybody starts, like, your interests start to go in different directions. And I think I was just someone who liked to draw when I was a kid. And then as I got older, I still like to do it. But because I had teachers that really encouraged me, I think I felt like I was allowed to keep doing it and that I didn't have to stop. So I remember I had two teachers, Miss Ike, Mr. Doherty. They, encouraged me to not only keep drawing, but they recommended that I draw for different projects for the school. So like I would draw for a school newspaper. I was asked to draw posters. I was asked to paint a mural in the school. Eventually we did a yearbook and I did drawings for the yearbook. And all of those things made me feel like my drawings had value and that, that it was something that I keep doing. So I feel really grateful for teachers, but I would never, those teachers wouldn't know that I like to draw if I didn't share it with them. So that's why I say you guys have to share your stuff. Because I actually know really talented people. Like you guys, like don't even realize there's artists in your class right now in your school who are like better drawers than me, that are so talented. But if they don't share their work, like no one knows about it. So that's why. I say you got to share your sketchbooks, share your drawings with people, because you never know where it's going to go, what directions you're going to lead. I never got my job at Nickelodeon if I didn't share my artwork. Even when I was interning, it was because I was sharing my artwork with the people that I was working with, and they would recommend me for other stuff because they were like, "Oh, you should talk to this person. You should meet this person." And some of my best friends came from, sharing my comic books, going to Comic-Con, sharing my comics with people.
Wow, that's so awesome. Your drawings are fantastic. At what age did you begin drawing? Was it in
Oh, it's
elementary
fun.
school?
I was like my earliest drawings are just doodles, like just little scribbles and stick figures, and it's they were nothing special. Like everybody draws for fun when you're a kid, and I just drew because I was bored. I didn't know that I was it wasn't that I was extra talented or anything like that. I just did it for fun. And for me, it never stopped being fun. And as long as something is fun and you enjoy doing it, you can't help but get better at it. Like that's, whether it's music, whether it's sports, whether it's working out, if you go to the gym every day, you can't help but be in good shape. It just happens. And I feel like drawing is the same way. Like if you just do it every day, if you write a story every day, if you write a poem every day, you're just going to keep getting better at it. And I was just lucky that no one told me to stop. And, the encouragement of those teachers allowed me to keep doing it.
All right, so we'd like to thank you for joining us today. Before we let you go, we want to do a wave for you.
A Raider wave. Are you guys ready? Mr. Roman, thank you so very much for your time, for your stories, for your interesting, for letting us know, especially the students, that you just keep doing what you do.
Yeah.
Like you say, you started off with just doodling, and look what direction it went. And so I hope these young Raiders get inspired to do what they do. Like I always tell them, just you be you, kid. Don't worry about the other guy. You just be you. So on that note, we're gonna give you a big Raider wave. We're gonna start off with this purple. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, we did, yeah. Mr. Roman, thanks again one more time. We appreciate it.
It's awesome, awesome.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye.